Excuse me, are we seriously allowing someone dressed like that in premium cabin? I paid $4,200 for this seat. This is unacceptable. The drink cart slams into the bulkhead. The sound cuts through the cabin like a gunshot. Glasses shatter. Ice scatters across the aisle. The overhead lights flicker once a single stuttering pulse that leaves passengers blinking in confusion. Kelvin Thatcher stands in the aisle, his Italian suit perfectly pressed, his finger pointed directly at seat 10C. His voice carries the weight of someone accustomed to being obeyed. The woman he's pointing at doesn't move. She doesn't speak. Her faded surplus jacket hangs loose over a plain gray shirt. Her hiking boots are caked with dried mud. Her small canvas duffel bag rests under the seat in front of her, barely bigger than a grocery sack. She looks like someone who missed a connecting flight and ended up in the wrong section by accident. But her eyes are different. They're scanning the seatback screen in front of her fingers, moving across the display with practiced precision. She touches the emergency exit diagram, counts something. Her lips move silently. Then her hand drops to her lap, and she stares out the window as if Kelvin Thatcher doesn't exist. Behind Kelvin, a younger woman, Jasmine Porter, 27 phone already raised, angles her camera toward the scene. The red recording light glows. She whispers into the microphone, "You guys are not going to believe this. Some random woman in like thrift store clothes is sitting in premium, and this guy just called her out. This is about to go viral." The cabin is quiet, except for the low hum of the engines. 312 passengers, Denver to Seattle. 2 hours, 10 minutes scheduled flight time. Nobody knows that in 48 minutes that silence will shatter into something none of them will ever forget. Ivy Chandler sits perfectly still in 10C. She doesn't look at Kelvin. She doesn't defend herself. She simply breathes slow, controlled, the kind of breathing that comes from years of training most people will never understand. Her left hand rests on the armrest. There's a faint tremor in her fingers. She notices it, clenches her hand into a fist, releases. The tremor fades, but not completely. Her surplus jacket is the color of old khaki, worn at the elbows and frayed at the cuffs. Her hiking boots show layers of dried mud that no amount of wiping could fully remove. The canvas duffel bag under her seat is military issue style, the kind you can buy at any surplus store for $15. Everything about her screams budget travel, missed connections, last-minute booking. But the way she fastened her seatbelt tells a different story. She didn't fumble with the buckle, didn't adjust it twice like most passengers do. She pulled it tight across her lap with a single fluid motion, then tugged it once more, checking the tension. It's a 5-point harness habit, the kind fighter pilots develop after thousands of hours strapped into ejection seats. She glances out the window, now watching the ground crew disconnect the jet bridge. Her eyes track the distance from her seat to the overwing emergency exit. Row 10 to row 12, 6 feet, 4 seconds if she moves fast. Her gaze shifts to the forward exit. 12 rows, maybe 10 seconds. She's counting, calculating, planning escape routes without even thinking about it. 3 rows ahead, Hugo Finley, 69 years old, wearing a faded ball cap that reads C5 Galaxy Crew Chief, watches her with narrowed eyes. He doesn't say anything, not yet, but there's recognition in his expression. He's seen that posture before, that awareness. 30 years working around military aircraft taught him to spot the difference between tourists and operators. Dr. Natalie Frost, seated in 7B flips through a cardiac surgery journal, but isn't really reading. She noticed Ivy during boarding, noticed the controlled breathing. 4 counts in, hold, 6 counts out. It's a technique Natalie learned working in military hospitals in Germany. Fighter pilots use it to manage stress and maintain focus under pressure. Kelvin raises his voice again. "Flight attendant, I want this sorted out. Check her boarding pass. There's obviously been a mistake." Serenity Blake approaches from the forward galley, her professional smile firmly in place despite the irritation flickering in her eyes. "Sir, is there a problem with your seat?" "Not my seat," Kelvin snaps. "Hers." He jabs his finger toward Ivy again. "Check her boarding pass. This doesn't add up." Ivy reaches into her jacket pocket slowly, without urgency, and pulls out a crumpled boarding pass. She hands it to Serenity without making eye contact. The paper is worn folded multiple times, but the barcode is intact. Serenity scans it with her handheld device. The screen beeps. Valid. "Sir Ms. Chandler's boarding pass is legitimate. Seat 10, C Premium Economy. Paid in full." Ivy's left hand trembles again as she lowers it back to her lap. She presses her thumb hard into her palm until the shaking stops. Then she folds both hands together and rests them on her thighs, covering the weakness. Kelvin's jaw tightens. Premium Economy. Look at her. She's probably using miles or some voucher scam. I don't care what your screen says, this doesn't add up. The Boeing 777-200ER holds 312 passengers today, Denver to Seattle. 2 hours, 10 minutes scheduled flight time. The cabin is configured with first class, upfront premium economy in the middle, and standard economy filling the rear. Kelvin Thatcher paid full price for his seat, $4,200. He expects a certain caliber of fellow travelers. A few passengers nearby chuckle. One man in his 40s expensive watch designer carry-on leans toward his companion and mutters, just loud enough to be heard, "He's not wrong. She looks like she walked off a Greyhound bus." Claudette Hayes, 38, corporate attorney seated in 9A, nods thoughtfully. "It's reasonable to ensure passenger integrity," she says, her voice carrying authority. "Airlines have protocols for a reason. Security measures exist to protect everyone on board." Derek Ronan, 44, stands halfway from his seat in 11D. "In my Air Force days, we had strict protocols," he announces. "Appearance matters. You can tell a lot about someone by how they present themselves. Standards exist for a reason." Ivy still hasn't moved. She's staring out the window now, watching the taxiway lights blur past as the aircraft begins its slow roll toward the runway. Her left hand grips the armrest lightly. The tremor is back, just a whisper of movement in her fingers. She presses down harder, forcing her hand to steady. Hugo Finley shifts in his seat. His wife Eleanor touches his arm gently, a silent warning to stay out of it. But Hugo shakes his head. "Son," he says, his voice gravelly but calm, "let the lady sit. She's not bothering anyone." Kelvin turns his expression incredulous. "Stay out of this, old man. This is about safety and standards. I have every right to ensure the people around me belong here." Safety. Hugo repeats the word heavy with something close to disgust, but he doesn't push further. Not yet. He settles back into his seat, but his eyes never leave Ivy. Serenity leans closer to Kelvin, her voice dropping to a firm whisper. "Sir, I need you to take your seat. We're preparing for departure. If you remain standing, I'll have to involve the captain." Kelvin doesn't sit immediately. He crosses his arms, letting the moment hang. Then, with a huff of frustration, he drops into his seat and yanks his seatbelt tight. "This isn't over." He mutters loud enough for half the cabin to hear. "If anything happens on this flight, everyone's going to know who was really responsible." Jasmine Porter, still recording, zooms in on Ivy's profile. Her live stream chat is exploding. Hundreds of comments scrolling past. Half her viewers are defending Ivy. The other half are agreeing with Kelvin, but everyone is watching. The flight deck door opens briefly. Captain Ronald Pierce, 57 years old, 28 years flying commercial jets, salt and pepper hair, and the calm demeanor of someone who's seen everything, leans out and surveys the cabin. His eyes find Serenity, who gives him a subtle shake of her head. Nothing to worry about. Just another entitled passenger. The captain nods and disappears back into the cockpit. The PA system crackles. Flight attendants prepare for departure. Serenity straightens her uniform and moves toward her jump seat. The other flight attendants do the same. The cabin settles into the familiar pre-takeoff routine. Passengers check their seatbelts, put away electronic devices, close tray tables. Ivy Chandler doesn't move. Her seatbelt is already secure. Her phone is already off. Her duffel bag is already stowed. She's been ready since the moment she sat down. Now she just sits there, hands folded in her lap, eyes on the window, breathing in that slow, controlled rhythm. 4 counts in, hold, 6 counts out. The engines spool up. The aircraft turns onto the active runway. Through the window, the Rockies rise in the distance, their peaks white with fresh snow. The sky above is clear blue. Perfect flying weather. The engines roar. The acceleration presses everyone back into their seats. The nose lifts. The ground falls away. And as Denver disappears below, Ivy Chandler closes her eyes and lets muscle memory take over. She's not afraid of flying. She never has been. But somewhere deep inside, in a place she's tried to bury for 4 years, she knows the sky doesn't forget. And neither does she. 15 minutes into the flight, the cabin service begins. Serenity Blake and her team move through the aisles with practiced efficiency, distributing drinks and snacks. The seatbelt sign is off. Passengers recline their seats, pull out laptops, open books. The tension from boarding has mostly dissipated. Flight level 370. Cruising altitude. Everything routine. Ivy Chandler hasn't moved. She's still in 10C, staring out the window. The Rockies spread below jagged peaks dusted with snow. Her left hand taps a rhythm on the armrest. 4 taps. Pause. 6 taps. It's not random. It's the same pattern she uses to breathe. The aircraft bumps, just once, a small jolt that makes a few passengers glance up from their phones. The seatbelt sign chimes back on. Captain Pierce's voice comes over the PA, smooth and unhurried. Folks, we're encountering some light chop over the Rockies. Nothing to worry about, but let's get those seatbelts fastened again. Ivy's eyes snap to the overhead panel. She's looking at the seatbelt sign, even though she heard the announcement. She's listening to the engine tone. Her brain is processing information most passengers don't even register. She counts the seconds between bumps. Estimates wind speed. Plus minus 12 knots, she whispers to herself. Light to moderate cat. Dr. Natalie Frost, 3 rows ahead, hears it. She glances back, eyebrows raised. Cat. Clear air turbulence. That's not a term civilians use. That's pilot terminology. She studies Ivy for a moment, then returns to her journal. But she's no longer reading. She's watching. Ivy reaches up without thinking and checks the overhead oxygen mask panel. Her fingers trace the outline of the compartment door. She's not opening it, just confirming it's there. It's muscle memory. The kind of pre-flight check fighter pilots do automatically before every mission. Kelvin Thatcher notices. He pulls out his phone again and starts recording, documenting this for safety purposes. He says, loudly, making sure Jasmine Porter's camera picks it up too. If anything happens, you'll see who is really responsible. The turbulence hits harder. The aircraft drops suddenly, not much, maybe 50 feet, but enough to make drinks slosh and passengers gasp. A woman in the back screams. The drink cart in the forward galley rattles against its restraints. Then it breaks loose. The cart rolls backward down the aisle, picking up speed. Glasses tumble out. Cans scatter. It's heading straight for the passengers in rows 15 through 20. Serenity sees it coming. She lunges for it, but she's too far away. Ivy moves. She doesn't think. She unbuckles, rises, and steps into the aisle in one fluid motion. The cart is 6 feet away. 5. 4. She plants her feet, bends. Her knees catches it with both hands. The impact jars her shoulders, but she absorbs it, redirecting the momentum. In one smooth motion, she hooks the cart's floor latch into the anchor point, a latch most passengers don't even know exists. The cart stops, secure. The cabin is silent. Serenity reaches her breathless. You've done that before. It's not a question. Ivy doesn't answer. She walks back to her seat, sits down, refastens her seatbelt. Her left hand is shaking harder now. She presses it against her thigh until the tremor subsides. She doesn't look at anyone, but everyone is looking at her. If you've ever been judged by your appearance instead of your ability, hit that subscribe button, because what happens next will redefine everything you think you know about who's really in control. And don't forget to like this video so more people see this story. Hugo Finley nods slowly to himself. He knows exactly what he just witnessed. That woman isn't some random passenger. She's trained, and she's hiding it. The turbulence eases. The seatbelt sign chimes off. Captain Pierce's voice returns calm and measured. Folks, we've cleared that rough patch. Should be smooth from here. Flight attendants, you're free to resume service. But the cabin hasn't returned to normal. Passengers are whispering, pointing. Kelvin Thatcher is on his feet again. Phone and hand camera aimed at Ivy. Did everyone see that? He says loudly. That woman just violated safety protocol. She got out of her seat during active turbulence. She could have been injured. She could have injured someone else. This is exactly the kind of reckless behavior I was talking about. Jasmine Porter swings her live stream camera toward Kelvin. Her viewer count has tripled. The chat is exploding. Wait, she literally just saved people from getting hit by that cart? Jasmine says, half to her audience, half to Kelvin. That's not the point, Kelvin snaps. The point is, she didn't follow procedure. She took matters into her own hands without crew authorization. That's dangerous. That's liability. Claudette Hayes leans across the aisle, her attorney instincts kicking in. He's right, actually. Legally speaking, if she'd been injured, the airline would face significant exposure. Passengers aren't supposed to secure equipment. That's crew responsibility. She had no authority to act. Derek Ronan stands up, puffing out his chest. In the Air Force, we had a chain of command. You don't just do whatever you want because you think you can. There are rules, protocols. She broke them. Serenity Blake is still standing in the aisle, staring at Ivy. She wants to say something, wants to thank her. Maybe ask where she learned to do that, but Ivy's face is a mask. She's not engaging, not explaining, just sitting there, hands folded in her lap, eyes on the window. Hugo Finley can't stay quiet anymore. He twists in his seat to face Kelvin. Son, that woman just prevented injuries, maybe fatalities. You want to criticize her for that? I want to criticize her for being in a section she doesn't belong in, Kelvin fires back. For not following rules, for creating risk. Look at her. Does she look like someone who should be making decisions on a commercial aircraft? Appearance doesn't determine capability, Hugo says, his voice hardening. Experience does, Derek interrupts. And she has no credentials, no identification. For all we know, she's completely unqualified and got lucky. Ivy's breathing hasn't changed. 4 counts in, hold, 6 counts out. Her left hand trembles in her lap. She tightens her fist until her knuckles go white. The tremor doesn't stop completely, but it lessens. Dr. Natalie Frost turns in her seat, addressing Claudette and Derek. I'm a cardiac surgeon. I've worked with military personnel for 15 years. That woman's reflexes, her positioning, her technique, that wasn't luck. That was training. Training from where Claudette challenges. She won't even speak, won't identify herself. That's suspicious. Kelvin seizes the opening. Exactly. I'm calling the captain. He presses the flight attendant call button repeatedly. I want someone in authority to address this, now. The cabin buzzes with competing conversations. Some passengers are defending Ivy. Others are siding with Kelvin. Jasmine's live stream chat is a war zone. Her phone is overheating from the activity. Then the intercom crackles, but it's not Captain Pierce's voice. It's younger, strained. Serenity, I need you in the cockpit immediately. The cabin goes quiet. First Officer Colton Fraser's voice comes through again, barely controlled. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a medical situation with the captain. If there are any doctors on board, please identify yourselves right away. Dr. Natalie Frost is already unbuckling. She grabs her medical bag from the overhead bin and moves quickly toward the front of the aircraft. Other passengers sit frozen, processing what they just heard. Kelvin's face drains of color. Oh my God. We're all going to die because they hired an inexperienced co-pilot. Ivy's eyes close. She's listening now. Really listening. The engine tone has changed. Subtle, but it's there. Engine number 2 is running slightly rougher than engine 1. The aircraft's trim feels off. They're burning more fuel than they should be. She opens her eyes and looks at the wing. There's a thin layer of ice forming on the leading edge. Not much, not yet, but it's there. Her hands grip the armrests. This isn't light turbulence anymore. This is something else. Dr. Natalie Frost disappears into the cockpit. The door closes behind her. 30 seconds pass, then a minute. The cabin is silent except for the engine hum and the occasional nervous whisper. Parents hold their children tighter. Business travelers close their laptops. Everyone is waiting. The cockpit door opens. Serenity Blake steps out, her face pale. She moves to the intercom, choosing her words carefully. Ladies and gentlemen, Captain Pierce is experiencing a medical emergency. Dr. Frost is with him now. First Officer Fraser is in command of the aircraft. We are following all safety protocols. Please remain calm and stay seated. The cabin erupts. Passengers talking over each other, some crying, others pulling out phones trying to get signal even though they're at 37,000 feet. Kelvin stands up. This is unacceptable. I demand to speak to someone in authority. Where are we landing? What's the plan? Serenity raises her hand. Sir, please sit down. The flight crew is handling the situation. Handling it? How? Kelvin shouts. We have a co-pilot who's barely old enough to rent a car, flying us through a storm with no captain. This is negligence. Colton Fraser's voice comes over the PA again. His youth is more apparent now. The strain is unmistakable. Folks, I need everyone to listen carefully. If there is anyone on board with aviation experience, military pilots, flight instructors, anyone who's flown aircraft, please identify yourself to the flight attendants immediately. Ivy's heart pounds. She knows what's coming, knows she should stay silent, knows the risks. Derek Ronan jumps to his feet. I have Air Force experience, 6 years logistics and supply chain. I've been around aircraft my entire career. I can help. Serenity approaches him. Sir, were you a pilot? Logistics officer. Derek says quickly, but I've flown in military aircraft hundreds of times. I know procedures. I know aviation terminology. I can assist the co-pilot. Ivy stands, slowly, quietly. She moves toward Serenity and speaks just loud enough to be heard. Former Air Force pilot, F-15 Strike Eagle, 850 combat hours. I can help. The cabin freezes. Kelvin erupts. Absolutely not. This woman has been sitting here in rags, barely said a word all flight, and now she's claiming to be a fighter pilot. This is insane. This is fraud. This is our only option. Serenity says, but her voice wavers. She's looking at Ivy's trembling left hand, the worn jacket, the scuffed boots. Everything Kelvin said is running through her mind. Claudette Hayes stands. As an attorney, I have to advise against this. Without verified credentials, allowing an unqualified civilian into the cockpit could constitute criminal negligence. The airline could face massive liability. We all could. Derek pushes forward. I volunteer. At least I have documentation. He pulls out his military ID card, expired, but it's something. Air Force Logistics Officer, honorable discharge. I have proof of service. Ivy doesn't move, doesn't speak. She just stands there waiting. Colton Fraser appears at the cockpit door. His face is drawn. Sweat beads on his forehead. He's 28 years old, 2.5 years flying commercial. He's never flown solo in anything worse than light rain. "Ma'am," he says, looking at Ivy, "do you have any proof of your credentials?" Ivy's voice is steady. "I don't carry my dog tags anymore, but I know how to fly through this." "Through what?" Kelvin demands. "It's clear skies. The turbulence stopped." Colton shakes his head. "No, sir. We're flying into a rapidly developing weather system. Denver Center just upgraded it to severe. We've lost radar functionality due to a lightning strike. We're essentially blind." The cabin erupts again, panic spreading like wildfire. Hugo Finley stands, placing himself between Derek and the cockpit. "Son," he says to Derek, "I flew C-5 Galaxy aircraft for 22 years, flew with hundreds of pilots. That woman has pilot bearing. You don't. Sit down." Derek's face reddens. "Get out of my way, old man." Hugo doesn't budge. Kelvin is recording everything now. "This is murder. You're all witnessing this. If we crash, it's because they let some homeless woman into the cockpit based on nothing but her word." Ivy's left hand is shaking violently now. She can't hide it anymore. Kelvin points at it. "Look at her hand. She's got some kind of neurological condition. You want someone like that flying us?" Colton looks at Ivy's hand, then at her eyes. He's out of options. The weather ahead is getting worse. Captain Pierce is unconscious. He needs help. "Ma'am," he says finally, "I'll give you a chance. But if you can't perform, I'm removing you immediately." Ivy nods once. "Understood." She walks toward the cockpit. Kelvin lunges forward, trying to block her path. Hugo Finley catches him by the arm. "You're done, son." Jasmine Porter's live stream is maxed out. 10,000 viewers. The comments are a blur, half screaming for Ivy to save them, half screaming for someone to stop her. Ivy steps into the cockpit. The door closes behind her, and everything changes. The cockpit is chaos. Captain Ronald Pierce slumps in the left seat, oxygen mask over his face, eyes closed. Dr. Natalie Frost kneels beside him, checking his pulse, monitoring his breathing. Her face is grim. "Acute myocardial infarction," she says without looking up. "Massive heart attack. He needs a hospital within 30 minutes, or we're going to lose him." Colton Fraser sits in the right seat, both hands gripping the yoke so tight his knuckles are white. The instrument panel blazes with warnings. Red lights, yellow cautions, audio alerts competing for attention. His eyes dart between the displays, trying to process everything at once. Ivy steps in, closes the door behind her, and scans the cockpit in 3 seconds. Altimeter flight level 290. They've descended. Airspeed 280 knots and fluctuating. Vertical speed indicator oscillating between plus and minus 500 feet per minute. Weather radar display completely whited out. Not functioning. Engine instruments number 2 showing N1 fluctuation. Ice in the compressor. She moves to the jump seat behind Colton and buckles in. "Talk to me. What's your situation?" Colton's voice cracks. "Weather radar's dead. Lightning strike took out the antenna 20 minutes ago. We're flying blind. Denver Center is losing us on radar because of the storm interference. Fuel's critical because we've been deviating around cells we can't even see." And his voice breaks. "And I've never flown solo. Not once. Not even in training." Ivy's eyes track to the fuel gauges. 8,500 pounds remaining. At current consumption, maybe 45 minutes. "What's your nearest suitable alternate?" "Denver's closed. Blizzard conditions. Cheyenne's reporting below minimums." Buckley Space Force Base is 60 nautical miles southeast, but they're showing visibility 1/4 mile in heavy snow. 200-foot ceiling. We're 1,500 pounds above single-engine landing weight. Ivy processes this. No good options. No margin for error. "What about Seattle?" "Too far. We don't have the fuel. Not with these headwinds." Colton glances back at her. His eyes are desperate. I need help. Real help. Can you actually fly this thing? Ivy's left hand trembles on the armrest. She presses it flat against her thigh. Yes, but you need to trust me. Can you do that? Colton looks at Captain Pierce's unconscious form. Looks at the storm building on the forward windscreen. Looks at the fuel gauges counting down. I don't have a choice. Good answer. Ivy leans forward. First thing, reduce power on both engines to 85% N1. You're fighting the turbulence and burning fuel we don't have. But procedure says maintain assigned altitude. Procedure assumes normal conditions. Ivy's voice is calm, authoritative. Right now, you're stressing the airframe and wasting energy. Let the aircraft ride the turbulence instead of opposing it. Trust me. Colton hesitates for 2 seconds. Then he pulls the thrust levers back. The engine roar decreases. The aircraft's motion changes immediately. The violent pitching and rolling smooth out, not gone, but manageable. Holy, Colton breathes. It worked. It always does. Ivy is already looking at the overhead panel, mentally running through ice protection systems, anti-ice settings, fuel transfer options. Now squawk 7700. Declare emergency. Request any military frequency in the area. Colton reaches for the transponder. His hand is shaking. Denver Center, November 847. Delta Lima squawk 7700, declaring emergency. Captain incapacitated. Request immediate vectors to nearest suitable airport. The radio crackles. November 847. Delta Lima Denver Center. Roger your emergency. Squawk 7700 observed. Say souls on board and fuel remaining. 312 souls. Fuel 8,000 pounds. A pause. November 847. Delta Lima recommend immediate divert to Buckley Space Force Base. Frequency 362.3. Advise them of your situation. Colton changes the frequency. His breathing is steadier now. Having someone else in the cockpit, someone who knows what they're doing, is keeping him functional. Buckley Tower, November 847, Delta Lima emergency aircraft requesting immediate assistance. November 847, Delta Lima Buckley Tower, go ahead. Ivy reaches for the microphone. Doesn't ask permission, just takes it. Buckley, this is a former military pilot assisting. We need weather brief and approach capability for immediate landing. Captain, medical emergency, single pilot operation fuel critical. Silence on the radio. 3 seconds. 5. Then a different voice. Deeper. Authority. Civilian aircraft, this is Colonel Marcus Tanner Buckley, command post. State your military affiliation and authenticate. Ivy's hand tightens on the mic. She hasn't used her call sign in 4 years. Hasn't spoken it out loud since the day they told her she'd never fly again. But 312 people are depending on her now. Buckley call sign WRAITH. Request authentication via guard frequency. Another pause. Longer this time. WRAITH switched to 121.5 for authentication. Ivy changes radio 2 to guard the emergency frequency every military pilot knows. Buckley WRAITH on guard. Colonel Tanner's voice is different now. Careful. Almost disbelieving. WRAITH authenticate Tango 64 Whiskey. Ivy closes her eyes. The authentication codes change monthly. But there's a backup system. A legacy code that never changes. One that only pilots who've flown combat missions would know. She takes a breath. Authenticate Bravo Niner Charlie 7. Silence. 3 seconds pass. 5. 10. Colton glances at Ivy, confused. Dr. Natalie looks up from Captain Pierce, sensing something significant is happening, but not understanding what. Then Colonel Tanner's voice returns. But it's changed. The professional distance is gone. WRAITH, stand by. Ivy can hear background noise through the radio now. Multiple voices. Someone saying, pull her file. Someone else saying, That's impossible. The sound of keyboards clicking, urgent conversations. Colton whispers, "What's happening?" Ivy doesn't answer. She's staring at the instrument panel, but she's not seeing it. She's remembering. 4 years ago, Kandahar province, the mission that ended everything. The close air support run that saved 17 soldiers on the ground but cost her everything she'd worked for. The shrapnel, the nerve damage, the medical board, the discharge papers that felt like a death sentence. Her left hand is shaking badly now. She opens the small canvas duffel bag she brought into the cockpit against regulations, but nobody stopped her. Inside, beneath a change of clothes and basic toiletries, is a challenge coin, 3 inches across, worn smooth from years of handling. On one side, 336th Fighter Squadron Al Udeid Air Base. On the other side, a hand-engraved inscription. WRAITH, 850 combat hours. She pulls it out and places it on the glare shield in front of her. The metal catches the light from the instrument panel. Colton sees it. His eyes widen as he reads the inscription. "You're really Air Force." "Was," Ivy says quietly. The radio crackles. Colonel Tanner's voice is tight, controlled, like he's struggling to process what he's seeing on his screen. "WRAITH, we have your file. Shows killed in Action Afghanistan 2019. How are you on a civilian aircraft right now?" Colton's head snaps toward Ivy. "Wait, what?" Ivy keys the mic. "Long story, Colonel. Right now I need immediate vectors to Buckley longest runway available and emergency equipment standing by. We're losing an engine to ice fuel, critical 312 souls on board." WRAITH understood. Runway 16 11,000 feet. Winds 320 at 28, gusting to 40. Visibility 1/4 mile, heavy snow. Ceiling 200 feet. Current conditions below approach minimums. Are you capable of accepting these conditions? Ivy looks at the fuel gauges. 7,800 pounds. Maybe 35 minutes at current burn. She looks at the weather radar, still dead. She looks at Colton Fraser, who's staring at her like she's a ghost. "Buckley WRAITH copies all. We accept. Clear all traffic from the area. We're coming in." WRAITH Roger. All aircraft cleared. You are priority 1. Emergency equipment is rolling. WRAITH. The colonel pauses. "Welcome back." Ivy doesn't respond. She's already running calculations. Distance to Buckley. Descent rate. Single engine approach speeds. Fuel required for missed approach, except there won't be a missed approach. They don't have the fuel. This is one shot. Land or die. Behind them in the cabin, passengers have their faces pressed to windows. The sky ahead is dark gray. Not the normal dark of evening. The sick, bruised dark of severe weather. Lightning flickers inside the clouds. The aircraft shudders as they hit another patch of turbulence. Kelvin Thatcher is still standing phone out recording through the small gap in the cockpit door before Serenity pulls him back. "She's not even the captain," he shouts. "She's not certified for this aircraft. This is illegal." Hugo Finley has had enough. He unbuckles stands and gets in Kelvin's face. "Son, that woman just got authenticated by the United States Air Force. She's flown combat missions. She's saved lives under conditions you can't even imagine. Now sit down and shut up before I make you." Jasmine Porter is live streaming everything. Her viewer count has exploded to 25,000. The comments are scrolling too fast to read. But one word keeps appearing over and over: WRAITH. The warning horn screams. Red light floods the cockpit. Engine fire. Engine 2. Colton's hands fly to the fire handle, but Ivy is already moving. "Engine 2 fire handle, pull it, now, discharge bottle A." Colton yanks the handle. The T-shaped lever comes out with mechanical resistance. He twists it counterclockwise. The fire bottle discharges. The warning horn cuts off. The red light extinguishes. But engine 2 is dead. The aircraft yaws hard to the right. Ivy's hands shoot forward, grabbing the yoke. I have the aircraft. You have the aircraft! Colton confirms automatically, his training overriding his panic. Ivy's feet work the rudder pedals, counteracting the asymmetric thrust. Her right hand pushes the #1 throttle forward, increasing power on the remaining engine. Her left hand, trembling badly now, adjusts the trim wheel. The aircraft levels out, but barely. Single engine checklist, Ivy commands. Colton, I need you with me. Call out items. Colton grabs the quick reference handbook, flips to the engine failure section. His voice is shaking, but readable. Auto throttle disconnect. Disconnected. Thrust lever failed engine, confirm closed. Closed and verified. Fuel control switch cut off. Cut off. They run through the checklist in 90 seconds. Dr. Natalie Frost watches from behind, holding Captain Pierce's hand, monitoring his weakening pulse. She's a cardiac surgeon. She knows what happens when myocardial tissue dies. The captain has maybe 20 minutes before irreversible damage sets in. The cabin is chaos. Passengers heard the engine warning horn, felt the aircraft yaw, saw the wing dip. Now they know. Something catastrophic just happened. Kelvin Thatcher is screaming. We lost an engine. Oh God, we lost an engine. She's killing us. Somebody stop her. Derek Ronan tries to push past Hugo Finley toward the cockpit. Get out of the way. I can help. I know aircraft systems. Hugo doesn't move. You know supply chains. Sit down. Jasmine Porter's live stream is melting down. 30,000 viewers. The chat is pure chaos. People praying. People screaming. People demanding to know what's happening. Serenity. Blake moves through the cabin, trying to maintain calm, but her voice is tight with fear. Everyone remains seated. The flight crew is handling the situation. Handling it, Claudette Hayes shouts. We're on one engine with an unqualified person in the cockpit. This is negligence. This is manslaughter. In the cockpit, Ivy is on the radio. Buckley WRAITH. We just lost engine 2 to ice ingestion. Single engine emergency. Fuel now 6,800 pounds. Approximately 20 minutes remaining. Colonel Tanner's response is immediate. WRAITH Roger. We're standing by. Runway 16 clear. All emergency equipment in position. Weather is deteriorating. Visibility now 1/8 mile. Can you accept? Ivy looks at the fuel, looks at the distance, looks at Colton, who's staring at her with the expression of someone who just realized they're about to die. Buckley, we accept. We don't have a choice. She reaches for the PA system. Her finger hovers over the button for a moment. Then she presses it. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Ivy Chandler in the cockpit. Her voice is steady, authoritative, the voice of someone who's been here before. We have lost one engine due to ice accumulation. I am a former F-15 Strike Eagle pilot with 850 combat hours. We are executing a single-engine emergency landing at Buckley Space Force Base. Remain seated with seatbelts secured. Brace positions will be called if necessary. We will get you down safely. The cabin goes silent. Not calm, but silent. Hugo Finley nods to himself. That's a pilot. Kelvin Thatcher drops into his seat, face white as paper. Jasmine Porter whispers into her phone. Did she just say 850 combat hours? Dr. Natalie Frost leans forward from the jump seat. Captain Chandler, or Colonel, what's your first name? Ivy, just Ivy. Ivy, Captain Pierce's pulse is weakening. We need to be on the ground in 15 minutes maximum. Ivy's hands are steady on the yoke now. The tremor is still there, but it doesn't matter anymore. Muscle memory takes over. 850 hours. 53 combat missions. She's landed on damaged runways with one engine before. She's flown through sandstorms and surface-to-air missile fire. She's brought aircraft home that should have been scattered across mountainsides. But she's never done it in a Boeing 777. Never done it with 312 civilians depending on her. Never done it with fuel this low and weather this bad. Colton, she says quietly, I need you to call out airspeed and altitude every 10 seconds once we start the approach. Can you do that? Yes, ma'am. Don't call me ma'am. Call me WRAITH. The aircraft plunges into the clouds. Visibility drops to 0. Ice hammers the windscreen. The single remaining engine screams at max continuous power. The fuel gauges tick down. 6,500 pounds. 6,200. 6,000. Ivy pushes the yoke forward, beginning the descent into hell. Imagine being told you're not qualified while you're the only one who can save everyone. Drop a comment. What would you do in Ivy's position? Prove them wrong or walk away? Let's talk about it below. The aircraft drops through flight level 250, 200, 150. The altimeter spins downward. The mountains are below them somewhere in the darkness. Buckley Space Force Base is 12 miles ahead. 12 miles they have to cover with one engine, 0 visibility, and fuel that's burning away with every second. Colton's voice is a lifeline. 240 knots, descending through flight level 120. Ivy's hands move across the controls like she's playing an instrument. Throttle, trim, rudder. She's not thinking anymore. She's just flying. The way she was trained, the way she was born to do, and somewhere in the back of the aircraft in seat 10C, her canvas duffel bag sits empty. The challenge coin is on the glare shield. The only proof she needs. The storm rages, the fuel burns, the altimeter spins, and WRAITH flies on. The aircraft descends through 10,000 feet. The single remaining engine screams at maximum continuous thrust. Ivy's hands move across the controls with practiced precision, but her left hand trembles violently every few seconds. She has to pause, press it against her thigh, wait for the spasm to pass, then continue. Colton, give me current fuel state and estimated time to Buckley. Colton checks the gauges. His voice is steadier now, focused on the tasks Ivy keeps giving him. 5,200 pounds remaining. Distance to Buckley 12 miles. At current descent rate and speed approximately 8 minutes to intercept final approach course. 8 minutes. 5,200 pounds of fuel. Single engine. 0 visibility. Ivy runs the calculations in her head. They're burning roughly 650 pounds per hour on one engine at this power setting. 8 minutes is approximately 87 pounds. At approach, and landing another 200 pounds minimum. Total less than 300 pounds remaining when they touch down, if they touch down. Colton, we're going to set up for a single-engine ILS approach to runway 16. I need you to monitor 3 things constantly. Fuel flow, hydraulic pressure on both systems, and flap extension. We can't afford asymmetric flaps. Understood. What's our target approach speed? Ivy's mind pulls up the numbers from memory. Boeing 777 maximum landing weight, single engine icing conditions. VREF plus 10. That puts us at 162 knots on final. We'll carry extra speed because we can't afford to get slow with one engine. Dr. Natalie Frost leans forward from the jump seat. Captain Pierce is stable barely, but his color is still gray. Ivy, how much longer until we're on the ground? 10 minutes, maybe 12. He might not have 12 minutes. Ivy doesn't respond. She's watching the instruments. Airspeed 180 knots and decreasing as they descend. Altitude 8,000 feet. Rate of descent 1,500 feet per minute, aggressive for a commercial aircraft, but necessary to make the approach window. The radio crackles. WRAITH Buckley approach. We have you on radar. Descend and maintain 6,000. Turn left, heading 140 to intercept the localizer for runway 16. Buckley WRAITH. Leaving 8,000 for 6,000. Left turn 140. Ivy banks the aircraft gently. With only one engine, every maneuver has to be smooth. Too much bank, and they'll lose altitude they can't afford to give up. Too little, and they'll overshoot the approach course. Colton calls out, hydraulic system B showing yellow, pressure dropping from 3,000 psi to 2,600. Ivy's eyes snap to the hydraulic panel. System B is the backup. If it fails completely, they lose nose wheel steering. How fast is it dropping? Slowly, maybe 50 psi per minute. She does the math. 10 minutes to landing, 500 psi total loss. That leaves them with 2,100 psi, just barely enough to maintain control. Keep watching it. If it drops below 2,000, we're landing without nose wheel steering. Can we do that? We don't have a choice. The aircraft breaks through 7,000 feet. The turbulence hasn't eased. Ice continues to accumulate on the wings and tail. Ivy can feel it in the controls, the aircraft responding more sluggishly, requiring more force to turn more power to maintain speed. Colton, anti-ice status. Full on both wings, tail, and engine 1. Pitot heat confirmed. Good. We lose airspeed indication, and we're dead. In the cabin, passengers feel the descent angle increase. The nose-down attitude is unmistakable. Some people are crying, others praying. Hugo Finley sits with his wife Eleanor, holding her hand, his face calm despite the circumstances. He knows what's happening up front, knows how close they are to the edge. Kelvin Thatcher sits frozen in his seat. His phone is still in his hand, but he's not recording anymore. He's staring at the seat back in front of him, his face the color of old newspaper. Every arrogant word he spoke earlier is echoing in his mind now. Every judgment, every accusation. Jasmine Porter's live stream continues. 40,000 viewers now. The comments are a blur of prayers and support. Someone posted Ivy's military record screenshots of citations, photos of her in flight suit, standing next to an F-15. The word hero appears hundreds of times per second. Serenity Blake moves through the cabin one more time, checking seatbelts, making sure everyone is secure. She stops at Kelvin's row, looks at him, says nothing, just looks, then moves on. WRAITH Buckley approach, turn left heading 120, intercept localizer runway 16. You're cleared for the ILS approach, contact tower 126.7. Left 120 cleared ILS 16 tower 126.7, WRAITH. Ivy changes the radio frequency. Buckley Tower WRAITH with you on the ILS 16. WRAITH Buckley Tower, winds 320 at 28, gusting 40. RVR runway 16, now 600 feet. Emergency equipment in position. You are cleared to land runway 16. 600 feet of visibility. That's 1/10 of a mile. Barely enough to see the runway before they're on top of it. Colton's voice cuts through. Flaps 1. Ivy reaches for the flap lever, extends the first notch. The aircraft shudders as the flaps deploy into the slipstream. She feels the nose want to pitch up, compensates with forward yoke pressure. Flaps 1 confirmed. Speed check. 170 knots. Gear down. Colton reaches for the gear lever, pulls it down. 3 green lights illuminate left nose right. Gear down 3 green. The drag from the landing gear slows them further. Ivy adds power on the single engine. The asymmetric thrust tries to yaw them right. She counters with left rudder, her foot pressing hard against the pedal. Her left hand seizes. The tremor becomes a full spasm. Her fingers lock around the yoke. She can't let go. Can't move them. Colton, I need you to handle throttle for the next 30 seconds. He doesn't question it, just reaches over and takes control of the thrust lever. I have the throttle. Ivy uses her right hand to pry her left fingers off the yoke. The muscle spasm releases slowly, painfully. She flexes her hand, forcing blood flow back into the fingers. 10 seconds. 15. 20. The spasm passes. She takes the yoke back with both hands. I have the aircraft. You can release throttle. Colton doesn't mention what just happened. Doesn't ask if she's okay. He just focuses on his instruments and calls out, "Localizer alive, glide slope coming in." The needles on the instrument panel center. They're on the approach path, 12 miles from the runway, 6,000 feet altitude, single engine, ice accumulation, fuel critically low, and Ivy Chandler call sign WRAITH flies on. The radio crackles with a different voice. Not the tower controller. Deeper. More authority. "WRAITH, this is Colonel Marcus Tanner Buckley Command Post. We pulled your file." Ivy's jaw tightens. She knew this was coming. "Go ahead, Colonel." "Your combat record shows 3 Purple Hearts, Distinguished Flying Cross, Silver Star. You led the extraction operation at FOB Chapman 2019. Saved 17 soldiers under heavy fire." A pause. "File also shows you were declared killed in action when your F-15 went down 3 days after that mission." Colton's head snaps toward Ivy. "Wait, what?" Ivy doesn't take her eyes off the instruments. The localizer needle is drifting left. She corrects with a gentle bank. "Colton, I need you watching altitude and airspeed. Not my history." But Colton can't let it go. "You were declared dead. I was extracted 2 weeks later." Ivy's voice is flat, emotionless. "Classified recovery operation. Medical discharge followed. That's the end of the story." Dr. Natalie Frost leans forward, her medical mind piecing it together. "The tremor, the nerve damage, that's from Chapman. Shrapnel, severed nerves in my left forearm." Ivy flexes her hand. The tremor is constant now, a visible shake that she can't fully suppress. "Doctor said I'd never fly again. They were half right." Colonel Tanner's voice returns. "WRAITH, for the record, your file shows 850 combat hours, 53 combat sorties. Mission success rate, 98%. You're one of the most decorated pilots in modern Air Force history." Was Colonel, past tense. "Not from where I'm standing. You're flying right now. I'm assisting. There's a difference. Not to the 312 people depending on you." In the cabin, Jasmine Porter's live stream has become something more than disaster tourism. Her viewers are frantically searching for information. Screenshots of Ivy's military service photo flood the chat. Young woman in flight suit standing in front of an F-15 Strike Eagle. The tail number visible, AF-337. The patch on her shoulder, 336th Fighter Squadron. And below that, hand-stitched in small letters, WRAITH. Someone posts a link to a military aviation forum. A thread from 2019. Remembering Captain Ivy Chandler call sign WRAITH. KIA Afghanistan. Memorial Service Friday. Another viewer posts photos from that memorial service. Flag-draped empty casket. 3 generals in attendance. A senator giving a eulogy. The chat explodes. She's alive. How is this possible? WRAITH is real. Hugo Finley sees some of this on the phone of the passenger next to him. He nods slowly, unsurprised. He knew. From the moment she secured that drink cart, from the way she moved, he knew she was military. He just didn't know she was a legend. The challenge coin on the glare shield catches light from the instrument panel. Colton can read it clearly now. 336th Fighter Squadron, Al Udeid Air Base. The engraving worn but legible WRAITH, 850 combat hours. He reaches out, touches it gently. "This is real." "It was." Ivy's voice is quiet. "Long time ago." "You're still her. You're still WRAITH." Ivy doesn't respond. She's watching the altimeter, 4,000 feet, descending through the cloud deck. The windscreen is solid gray. Ice hammers the fuselage with a sound like distant applause. The single engine drones on steady but strained. Her left hand trembles on the yoke, but her course is steady. Her descent rate is precise, and her voice when she keys the mic is absolutely calm. Buckley Tower WRAITH, passing 4,000 for 3,000. Single engine fuel critical. Request priority. WRAITH, you have absolute priority. All other traffic is holding. The sky is yours. The sky is yours. 4 words Ivy hasn't heard in 4 years. 4 words she thought she'd never hear again. 4 words that mean everything. She doesn't smile, doesn't cry, just flies. Because that's what WRAITH does. That's what she's always done. The radio frequency comes alive with a new voice. Female. Command presence unmistakable. WRAITH, this is General Avisa Dorian NORAD Command. We're monitoring your situation from Peterson Space Force Base. Ivy's eyebrows raised slightly. A 3-star general doesn't typically monitor individual aircraft emergencies. General WRAITH copies. Captain Chandler, I read your after-action report from Chapman. What you did there saved lives that day. What you're doing now is saving lives again. You have full authority to execute any maneuver you deem necessary. NORAD Command trusts your judgment completely. Colton glances at Ivy, seeing her differently now. This isn't just a former pilot helping out. This is someone who has command-level respect from the highest ranks of military aviation. On Denver Center's frequency, which Buckley is monitoring, a controller's voice bleeds through. Is that really WRAITH? I thought she was KIA. Another voice responds, legend in the CAS community. Read about her in training. She's the one who talked down 3 damaged aircraft by radio while flying her own mission. In the cabin, Serenity Blake has heard enough through the cockpit door. She picks up the PA handset, her voice steady and clear. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to know that the pilot assisting our first officer is Captain Ivy Chandler, call sign WRAITH United States Air Force. She is a decorated combat veteran with 850 flight hours in fighter aircraft. We are in the most capable hands possible. The cabin reaction is immediate. Some passengers who were crying stop. Others who were panicking take deeper breaths. The simple act of knowing who is flying them, knowing her credentials, her experience, her record changes everything. Hugo Finley stands from his seat. At 69 years old, with 30 years of Air Force service behind him, he knows exactly what protocol demands. He comes to attention in the narrow aisle and renders a crisp salute toward the cockpit. "Thank you for your service, Captain," he says, loud enough to be heard over the engine noise. Other passengers see him, a few military veterans scattered through the cabin stand as well. They don't have the space to salute properly, but they stand. It's respect, recognition, gratitude. Kelvin Thatcher remains seated, his face buried in his hands. He can hear everything. The general's endorsement, the crew's confidence, the passengers' support. Every word is a hammer blow to his conscience. He wanted this woman removed from the aircraft, wanted her thrown off before takeoff, called her unqualified, dangerous, a liability, and she's saving his life. Claudette Hayes, the attorney who questioned Ivy's credentials, sits very still. She's calculating liability in her head, but the math has changed. The airline didn't put an unqualified person in the cockpit. They accepted help from one of the most decorated combat pilots in recent Air Force history. No jury would fault that decision. No judge would question it. Derek Ronan, who claimed military experience and tried to push his way into the cockpit, stares at the seat back in front of him. His 6 years in logistics suddenly feel microscopic compared to 850 hours of combat flying. He realizes with crushing clarity that he knows nothing about aviation, nothing about courage, nothing about what it means to actually serve. Jasmine Porter's live stream has reached 55,000 viewers. The chat has transformed from panic to pride. WRAITH is flying appears thousands of times. Someone starts a hashtag when women fly. It trends nationally within minutes. Colonel Tanner's voice returns. WRAITH, we've cleared all aircraft within 50 miles. You have unrestricted airspace. Emergency equipment is staged. Runway foam is being applied. We're ready for you. Ivy keys the mic. Buckley WRAITH copies all. Beginning final descent checklist. She turns to Colton. Final approach checklist. Call it out. Colton grabs the laminated card. His hands are steady now. Having Ivy in command has given him something he didn't have before: confidence. Speed brake lever flight detent. Checked. Landing gear down and locked. 3 green verified. Flaps approach setting. Flaps 5, set. 3,000 feet, 2,500, 2,000. The altimeter unwinds steadily. The engine drones on. The ice accumulation has plateaued, not getting worse, but not getting better. And Ivy Chandler once declared dead flies toward a runway she can't yet see, carrying 312 souls who finally understand exactly who she is. The warning is simple and devastating. WRAITH Buckley Tower. Weather has deteriorated. Visibility now 0-0. We have lost visual contact with runway lights. RVR now 400 feet. Winds 330 at 32, gusting 48. These conditions are below emergency minimums. 0-0. No visibility whatsoever. 400 feet RVR means they won't see the runway until they're practically on top of it. And the winds have shifted now almost 40 degrees off runway, gusting to nearly 50 knots. Colton's voice is tight. WRAITH, we're below single-engine go-around fuel. If we miss this approach, we won't have the fuel to climb back out. Ivy knows. She's been calculating it continuously. How much? 4,100 pounds. At single-engine go-around thrust, we'd burn 1,200 pounds in the climb to 2,000 feet. That leaves us 2,800, not enough to divert anywhere else. Translation. This approach is one shot, land or die. A yellow light illuminates on the hydraulic panel. Colton sees it first. Hydraulic system B, pressure showing 2,200 psi and dropping. Ivy's eyes flick to the gauge, dropping faster now. Rate of decrease, 100 psi per minute, maybe 90. She does the math instantly. 5 minutes to touchdown at current descent rate. 450 psi loss. That puts them at 1,750. If it drops below 1,500, we lose nose wheel steering completely. Landing rollout will be rudder and differential braking only. Can we do that in 40-knot crosswinds? We're about to find out. The aircraft breaks through 1,800 feet, still in solid cloud, still blind. Colton watches the instruments calling out their position. 1 mile from threshold, on glide slope, on localizer, speed 165. Flaps 15. Colton moves the lever. The flaps extend further. The aircraft shudders. Flaps 15 green light. Then it happens. Ivy's left hand doesn't just tremble, it seizes completely. Her fingers lock rigid around the yoke in a full muscle spasm. She can't move them, can't release them, can't adjust her grip. Colton. Her voice is strained. She's trying to pry her left hand free with her right, but the spasm is too strong. What do you need? I need... She can't finish. The aircraft is descending through 1,500 feet. They're 90 seconds from touchdown, and she can't control the yoke with both hands. She makes a decision, transfers full control to her right hand on the yoke, uses her right knee to brace against the yoke for pitch control. Her left hand stays locked on the left side, basically useless, but not interfering. I have it. Keep calling altitude. WRAITH, are you sure? Altitude Colton, now. 1,000 feet, 3/4 of a mile. Dr. Natalie Frost sees what's happening, sees the muscle spasm, sees Ivy flying one-handed with a knee against the control column. She's a surgeon. She knows anatomy, knows what damaged nerves can do under extreme stress. Ivy, if you need to abort... There is no abort. We don't have the fuel. Ivy's voice is steel. Colton call it. 800 feet, half mile, still in the clouds. The cabin is completely silent. Every passenger knows something critical is happening. They can feel the aircraft's descent angle. can hear the single engine straining, can sense that they're moments from either salvation or catastrophe. Kelvin Thatcher looks out his window, sees nothing but gray, realizes that the woman he tried to humiliate is flying them through hell with one functioning hand. The irony is crushing. 600 feet, still IMC, instrument meteorological conditions, still blind. 500, 400. Then Colton sees it, a break in the clouds, just a thin spot. 300, breaking out, I see lights. The runway appears through the murk like a mirage. 2 white stripes of light barely visible through heavy snow. They're not aligned. The crosswind has drifted them right of center line. They're coming in at an angle. Ivy sees it too, sees the problem instantly. To land safely, she needs to crab into the wind, then kick the rudder at the last second to align the nose with the runway. It's a technique called a wing-low crosswind landing. She's done it hundreds of times, but never one-handed. 200 feet. Her right hand adjusts the yoke. Her knee maintains pitch. Her feet work the rudder pedals. The aircraft dips left wing low into the wind. The wingtip looks like it's going to scrape the concrete. "Wraith wing's too low," Colton shouts. "Trust me." Her voice is absolutely calm. 100 feet. The runway rushes up. 50 feet. 25. She kicks right rudder hard, the nose swings left, aligning with the center line. The aircraft hangs there for one impossible second, suspended between control and chaos. Then the main gear touches. Hard. Not graceful, but down. The impact slams every passenger against their seatbelts. The main landing gear absorbs the shock with a metallic groan that reverberates through the entire airframe. For a fraction of a second, the aircraft bounces the nose, still airborne, the tail already down. Ivy doesn't fight it. She lets the nose wheel settle naturally, waiting for the weight to transfer. The moment it touches, she makes 3 moves simultaneously. Right hand slams the thrust lever to idle. Right foot stomps the right brake. Left foot holds left rudder hard. The single engine's thrust reverser deploys with a roar like a freight train. The asymmetric reverse thrust tries to yaw the aircraft violently to the right. Ivy counters with full left rudder pressure, her entire body weight on the left pedal, while her right hand works the tiller and her knee still braces the yoke. Colton is calling numbers, but she's not hearing them anymore. She's flying by feel. 80 knots, 70, 60. The aircraft veers right despite her inputs. The crosswind is pushing them toward the runway edge. She releases right brake, completely applies full left brake. The left main gear locks up briefly. She feels it through the airframe, then releases. The aircraft straightens. 40 knots, 30. Ice and snow spray from the tires. The emergency vehicles pace them, red and blue lights, strobing through the blizzard. Foam covers the runway ahead, white billowing clouds that the aircraft plows through like surf. 20 knots, 15. The aircraft slows more. The single engine spools down. The reversers retract. And finally they stop. Full stop. Runway 16, Buckley Space Force Base. For 3 seconds, nobody moves. The cockpit is silent, except for the ticking of cooling metal and the howl of wind outside. Then Ivy's left hand releases. The muscle spasm breaks. Her fingers uncurl from the yoke. She pulls her hand back and cradles it against her chest, flexing the fingers, slowly forcing circulation back. Colton is staring at her. "You just landed a 777 one-handed in zero visibility crosswinds." "No." Ivy's voice is hoarse. "We landed it. You kept me informed. That's what crew coordination means." Dr. Natalie Frost unbuckles from the jump seat and immediately checks Captain Pierce. His pulse is there. Weak, but there. He's stable, but he needs a hospital now. Ivy keys the PA system. Her hand is shaking, both of them now, from adrenaline and exhaustion and 4 years of holding everything inside. But her voice is steady. Absolutely steady. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Ivy Chandler. Welcome to Buckley Space Force Base, Colorado. Remain seated with your seatbelts fastened. Emergency medical personnel will be boarding shortly to assist Captain Pierce. You will then be deplaned in an orderly fashion. Thank you for your cooperation during this emergency. She releases the button, looks at Colton. How much fuel left? He checks the gauge. 370 pounds. 370 pounds. Less than what some cars carry. Barely enough to taxi. Definitely not enough for a go-around. If they'd missed that approach, they would have been gliding within 2 minutes. Outside the cockpit windows, emergency vehicles surround the aircraft. Fire trucks, ambulances, security forces. Through the blowing snow, Ivy can see figures running toward them. Paramedics with stretchers, ground crew with chocks and tie-downs, and one figure in a flight suit walking purposefully through the storm. As he gets closer, Ivy sees the silver eagles on his shoulders. Colonel Marcus Tanner. He reaches the forward door just as it opens, climbs the stairs, enters the cockpit, sees Captain Pierce unconscious, sees Dr. Natalie monitoring his vitals, sees Colton Fraser, 28 years old, looking like he just aged 10 years. And he sees Ivy Chandler, still in her faded surplus jacket, still in her mud-caked boots, her left hand trembling visibly, her face pale with exhaustion. Colonel Tanner comes to attention and renders a crisp salute. Captain Chandler, on behalf of Buckley Space Force Base and the United States Air Force, thank you. That was the finest piece of airmanship I have witnessed in 32 years of military aviation. Ivy stands slowly. Her legs are unsteady. She returns the salute with her right hand. Her left won't cooperate yet. Just doing what I was trained for, Colonel. Training doesn't explain what you just did. That was instinct, experience, courage. He lowers his salute. We had 50 people watching your approach on radar. Every controller, every supervisor, half the wing operations staff. Nobody believed you could make it. You proved us all wrong. Dr. Natalie steps forward. Colonel Captain Pierce needs immediate transport to cardiac surgery. Medical is standing by. We'll have him at the hospital in 10 minutes. Tanner keys his radio. Ground send in the medical team. Priority 1. Paramedics board quickly, efficiently transferring Captain Pierce to a stretcher. Dr. Natalie goes with them, riding beside the stretcher as they carry him off the aircraft. Her job isn't done yet. Colton unbuckles and stands, his legs shaking. He extends his hand to Ivy. I don't know how to thank you. You saved my life. You saved everyone. Ivy shakes his hand. You did good, Colton. You kept your head when most people would have panicked. That's what matters. I watched you fly one-handed in conditions that would have killed anyone else. That's what matters. In the cabin, passengers are beginning to understand what just happened. Serenity Blake picks up the PA handset one more time. Her voice carries the weight of someone who has just witnessed something extraordinary. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to formally introduce the pilot who brought us home safely. Captain Ivy Chandler, call sign, WRAITH United States Air Force. 850 combat hours, 3 Purple Hearts, Distinguished Flying Cross, Silver Star. She just saved all 312 of us. The cabin erupts. Not polite applause, not grateful clapping. A standing ovation from everyone who can stand. Shouting, crying, hands pounding seats. Hugo Finley stands at attention, his salute sharp despite his age. Other veterans follow his lead. Kelvin Thatcher remains seated. His hands cover his face. His shoulders shake. He's not crying from relief. He's crying from shame. Jasmine Porter's live stream has 70,000 viewers. The comments are a wall of text moving too fast to read. But 3 words appear over and over and over. Hero, legend, wraith. And somewhere in that mass of digital chaos, someone posts a photo. Ivy Chandler, 26 years old, standing beside an F-15 Strike Eagle in Afghanistan. Young, strong, before the shrapnel, before the nerve damage, before she was declared dead and buried in an empty casket. The caption reads, "She came back from the dead to save the living. This is what a hero looks like." Colonel Tanner gestures toward the open cockpit door. "Captain, if you're able, there are a few people who'd like to meet you." Ivy steps out of the cockpit into the cabin. The applause intensifies. 312 faces turn toward her, some crying, some smiling through tears, all of them alive because of what she just did. Hugo Finley is the first to speak. His voice carries the authority of 3 decades in uniform. "Captain Chandler, I flew C-5s for 22 years. I've seen a lot of pilots, but I've never seen anything like what you just did. Thank you for bringing us home." Ivy nods, her voice quiet. "Thank you for your service, sir." A woman in her 30s holding a sleeping infant reaches out to touch Ivy's arm as she passes. "You saved my daughter. I don't have words. Just thank you." Ivy pauses, looks at the baby. Something in her expression softens for just a moment. "What's her name?" "Emma. She's 6 months old." "She's lucky to have you." Ivy continues down the aisle. More hands reach out, more voices offering thanks. She accepts each one with a nod, a quiet word never lingering. She reaches row 10C, her seat, her canvas duffel bag still tucked underneath. She pulls it out, shoulders it. The weight feels heavier now than it did when she boarded in Denver. Kelvin Thatcher is 3 rows behind her. He stands slowly, his expensive suit rumpled, his face drawn. "Captain Chandler." Ivy turns, waits. Kelvin's voice breaks. "I owe you an apology. I judged you. I tried to stop you. I was wrong about everything. And you saved my life anyway." Ivy studies him for a long moment. She could say so many things, could tell him exactly how his words felt, how his judgments cut, how close he came to causing a disaster by trying to prevent her from helping. Instead, she says simply, "We all make mistakes when we're afraid. What matters is what you do after." She turns and continues toward the exit. Kelvin stands there, those words hitting harder than any rebuke could have. Claudette Hayes, the attorney, catches Ivy's eye as she passes, says nothing, just nods, once a gesture of acknowledgement, recognition, respect. Derek Ronan doesn't make eye contact at all. He stares at his hands, seeing them for what they are. Hands that have never flown, never fought, never saved anyone. Jasmine Porter lowers her phone as Ivy approaches. "Captain Chandler, can I ask you something?" "Make it quick." "Why did you help? After how people treated you, after how we all treated you, why didn't you just stay in your seat?" Ivy pauses at the exit door, looks back at the cabin. 312 people, young and old, rich and poor, people who judged her and people who didn't, because that's not who I am. She descends the stairs into the blizzard. The wind hits her immediately, snow stinging her face. Emergency vehicles surround the aircraft, their lights painting the storm in red and blue. Colonel Tanner is waiting at the bottom of the stairs. Behind him, a formation of airmen has assembled despite the weather. 20 enlisted personnel standing at attention in the snow. As Ivy's feet touch the tarmac, they salute in unison. Ivy stops, stares. She hasn't seen a formation salute in 4 years. Hasn't felt the weight of that recognition since the day they grounded her. Her throat tightens. She returns the salute, right hand sharp, despite everything. Colonel Tanner steps forward as the formation drops their salutes. Captain Chandler Buckley, Space Force Base, stands ready to provide any support you need, medical, transportation, accommodations, whatever you require. I need to make sure Captain Pierce gets to surgery. Already done. He's en route to UC Health University Hospital. Dr. Frost is with him. Best cardiac surgeons in Colorado. Ivy nods. Then I need a phone and a quiet place to sit down. This way. They walk across the tarmac toward the operations building. Behind them, passengers begin deplaning. Many of them stop on the stairs, looking back at Ivy's retreating figure. Some pull out phones to take photos. Others just watch in silence, understanding they just witnessed something they'll tell their grandchildren about. Inside the operations building, Colonel Tanner leads Ivy to a small briefing room. Coffee waiting. Quiet. Warm. He gestures to a phone on the desk. Secure line if you need it. I'll be outside. Colonel, he turns. Thank you for believing me. Not everyone would have. Tanner's expression softens. Captain, I didn't believe you at first. I looked you up. Saw the KIA listing. Thought maybe someone was impersonating a dead pilot. But then I read your file. Really read it. And I realized something. He pauses. People like you don't die easy, and they sure as hell don't quit. He closes the door behind him. Ivy stands alone in the quiet room. Her left hand is still trembling. She looks at it for a long moment. This damaged hand that almost cost her everything. This hand that the medical board said disqualified her from flying. This hand that just helped save 312 lives. She sits down slowly, closes her eyes, and for the first time in 4 years, allows herself to feel what she's been holding back. Not pride, not vindication, just exhaustion and relief, and the crushing weight of responsibility finally released. Outside, the storm continues. But inside this small room, Ivy Chandler call sign WRAITH finally lets herself rest. 20 minutes pass. Ivy sits in the briefing room drinking coffee that's too hot and too strong, but exactly what she needs. The door opens. Dr. Natalie Frost enters, still wearing her jacket flecked with snow. Captain Pierce is in surgery. They're optimistic. She sits across from Ivy. You bought him the time he needed. Good. Natalie studies Ivy's left hand, which rests on the table, still tremoring slightly. Can I ask you something as a doctor? Go ahead. How did it happen? The nerve damage. Ivy is quiet for a moment. Then she begins to speak. Not because she wants to, but because Dr. Natalie earned the right to know. Fob Chapman, Afghanistan, February 2019. 17 soldiers pinned down by Taliban ambush. Heavy casualties. They called for close air support. I was mission lead. F-15E Strike Eagle. She looks at her hand as she talks, remembering. My wingman took ground fire early in the engagement. Lost hydraulics. Had to RTB. That left me alone. 17 soldiers on the ground depending on me. I made 6 gun runs. Each one lower than the last because the Taliban had entrenched positions. I could see them. Could see our guys trapped. Her voice doesn't change. Doesn't dramatize. Just states facts. Final run, I came in at 200 feet. Too low. I knew it was too low. But our guys were dying. RPG hit my aircraft. Shrapnel came through the canopy. Severed the radial nerve in my left forearm. Blood everywhere. Couldn't feel my hand. Dr. Natalie leans forward. You landed with a severed